Hello, I'm your host, Peggy Van de Plassche, and you are on the Microdose Diet podcast. We talk about all things transformation and how to use alternative therapies, including microdosing psilocybin, in order to transform your life for more success, passion, and happiness. So today is a bit of a different episode because I was victim of a hate incident this weekend by two privileged boys in my own neighborhood. Yes, believe it or not. And if you know me, you know that I'm 6 foot tall, so I'm definitely not the type of person that you would expect to be a victim of a hate incident, literally at 50 meters from her home. So what happened? So I was, just taking a stroll with my husband. It was Saturday. We were going, a weekend goes. I was doing a few errands and just walking quietly on the sidewalk, nothing extraordinary, going literally minding our own business. I was engrossed in a conversation. I had gone to a writers' networking event that morning, and I was telling it all to my husband. And then I overhear a comment. Why is she so tall? Why is he so small? And I'm walking and I take a couple of steps. I'm like, oh, I think that insult was actually addressed to my husband and I. So I retraced my step and, I'm not going to lie, I went directly in fight or flight. And for me, it's usually more fight than flight, let's be honest. So I retraced my step and then what do I see? Two privileged boys from the neighborhood, electric scooter, all brand clothes, obviously white, 14-year-old, and I have seen one around with the private school uniform, that type of boys. And I live in a privileged uniform. So I come back to them and I'm like, pardon me? And the kid, I'm really not joking, stared at me and repeated word for word the insult, but like staring at me. Like not blinking. So anyway, I will pass the back and forth with him, but they didn't backtrack. They actually doubled down, and I would say tripled down, that I was old, I was ugly, before taking off on their freaking scooter and giving me the finger, believe it or not. And I'm not gonna joke, I was floored that a couple of kids are comfortable enough in their own neighborhood, in my own neighborhood, they literally live, I'm sure, 2 or 3 street up, insulting 40-something adults just walking on the street. I was just like, what is just happening here? And, you can analyze the situation in different ways. First, you can say it is 2024 and you have 2 teenage boys who are massively intolerant and disrespectful. So is it something they hear at home, at school, online? I have no idea. But can you imagine feeling comfortable insulting 40-something when you're 14 years old? What do you think they say to disabled kids, people of color, transgender individuals, or anyone from any identifiable group that doesn't fit their views? And what do they say to the teenage girls at school? What do they do to them? So that's my first aha, what's going on here? My second aha, what's going on is, if you know me, I'm a big proponent of gender equality, which seems obvious, but anyway, I think unfortunately it is not. How can we hope to ever achieve gender equality if in 2024, privileged generation Alpha, we're not even talking the generation Z, the millennium, no, Alpha, are still sexist? Do their mothers complain about the all-boys club at work before treating their own sons as untouchable semi-gods? Do the fathers treat women like second-class citizens? Do the teachers at their private schools dismiss the sexist hate incidents as boys will be boys? I have no idea, but these are questions I'm seriously asking myself. And I have news for the people who are enabling these boys to feel so overtly confident in their entitlement, is that boys will be men. And if a 14-year-old boy already feels comfortable enough to insult and bully adults in his own neighborhood, that to me is a massive red flag. It is not something to be dismissed as teenage mischief. And that brings me to my third point. And I'm going to paraphrase Spider-Man, not that I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man, but I really like that line. With great power come great responsibility. And this applies as much to the parents as it does to the kids. When someone is given everything on a silver plate, much should be expected of them. And I'm seeing exactly the opposite right now. We demonize kids from underprivileged neighborhoods. We blame immigrants for everything. And we give a free pass to those who have had everything handed to them. And really, I think it's time for us to look in our own backyard because yes, it starts with us. And I'm really hoping to identify the perpetrators, their parents, and the school they attend, because I'm going to report this incident, because too often we brush off situations like this only to wonder, oh, things got so out of hands. Well, that's exactly it happens. One step at a time, one insult at a time. And it's like a frog being slowly boiled. We don't realize it, and then 5 years later, we wonder what's happening in our life and why are people so aggressive and dangerous. So I'm going to be honest, I have very little hope to, receive any sympathy from the parents. In France, we say, les chiens ne font pas des chats, which means children often reflect their parents' character. But at the very least, there will be a record of the bullying because believe me, this experience will only embolden them and they will escalate next time. So this is a podcast on transformation and there is a silver lining to that story. And what does it mean for you? So believe it or not, there is a bright side to that story, at least for me. So even if I'm not gonna lie, I only have kept my cool during the incident, I was able to use it for my personal growth. And yes, it's always this concept of ABG, always be growing. So in the past, I would have pretended I wasn't hurt, I wasn't enraged, I wasn't ashamed, and I would have acted like it didn't matter. I mean, like you, I'm sure it's not as if I didn't have my share of hurtful comments, bullying, and minimization over the years. And I'm sure, like you can also remember a lot of these incidents. But this time I really acted different. First, I acknowledged my feelings instead of burying them. Because after all, I didn't do anything wrong, right? I was allowed to feel rage, hurt, and shame. I wasn't going to invalidate myself on top of everything else, right? Well, actually, that's what most of us, and including myself, we usually do. We don't want to feel the emotions and physical sensations, so we bury them deep down until they explode internally or externally. And really befriending our emotions is really the first step to a calmer body, calmer mind, getting off autopilot. And it is not something we're used to do. And I'm going to be honest, it's not something that is very enjoyable. But in the long run, this will really help you get out of autopilot and access your full range of emotions and also really avoid you being triggered when similar-ish situations arise. And I mean, to close the loop with this 8 incident, these teenage boys obviously are emotionally unregulated. Otherwise, they wouldn't feel the need to express their emotions in such an aggressive way. And it is fair to assume that their own parents are also poorly emotionally regulated too. So to regulate yourself, well, you need to process and actually not just process, first really acknowledge your feelings. Then we'll talk about processing them. And, one thing that's very important as well is that after witnessing myself, after witnessing these emotions, I allowed myself to feel self-compassion. Not only for this incident, but for the hundreds of others that had happened before, which I had never acknowledged or processed. And I also extended self-compassion to my younger self, who didn't know how to process emotions. And the only option was to bury deep down, increasing the hurt, the anger, the shame, one event at a time. And that's what made me a fast-triggered person, because at the first opportunity, I would feel hurt, I would feel shame, I would feel anger, because I had never processed these hundreds of minimization, these hundreds of invalidation, these hundreds of bullying. So all of that was still in me. So this is where I'm going to the third point. I processed my emotions and the physical sensation. So have you ever felt knots in your stomach, your heart sinking or pounding, your throat tightening, your cheeks blushing, your hands sweating, your jaws clenching? All of these are the physical manifestation of your unpleasant, in that context, emotions, and associated with the thoughts as well. So there are multiple ways to process your emotions. And I really love going through a combined technique that is going through the body, the physical sensation, and going through the mind, the thoughts at the same time. That's really my favorite avenue. And it really means combining multiple techniques, obviously. I really love personally the combo of tapping. I'm sure you heard me already talk about tapping, avening, journaling, visualization, and obviously microdosing to really make everything go better, deeper, faster. And that's what I lay out in my protocol, the Microdose Diet. And you can see the book behind me if you're watching the video. So with the 90-day protocol I lay out in the Microdose Diet, we really process this blocked emotion and this limiting belief, but in a controlled and targeted way, because we align with what is your intention of the moment, and all the limiting belief, all the block emotion associated with that intention are the ones we're targeting. You can also use what we're talking about in the Microdose Diet for events like I just had, and use the same method to process the emotions and really, really release them so they don't stay inside you and make you triggered in the future. So, and this is really based on each client's particular intention. The backbone of the protocol stays the same, but we just adjust the specifics. And I've seen, great success with clients who have been able to become way less impulsive. So they are less in fight or flight. They are less reactive in specific situations we worked on. I've also seen clients who have been able to have difficult discussions with boss, spouse, children, conversations they were not able to have in the past because of this emotional reactivity, because of this being triggered. And again, to close the loop with this 8 incident, this is definitely a protocol these boys, minus the microdosing, obviously, and their parents should go through, because there are clearly quite a few emotions that need to be processed in a healthy way. And right now they're actually, doing the other way around. They're just exploding them. So if you're really interested in learning more about the process, the Microdose Diet, you can visit my website, because now I offer one-on-one coaching, I offer small group sessions, I also offer workshop, but also experiential keynotes. So keynotes during which ones we do tapping, we do visualization. So you get out of the keynote with actually an experience and a lighter heart and body. So I hope you enjoyed this edition. I realize it's a bit different than usual. It was a different weekend for me as well. I'm really, really looking forward to your comments. What would you have done in my place? What would you do in my place? Do you still feel stuck yourself in past emotions, sensations? Are you becoming extremely reactive in certain situations? So I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So thank you so much for being part of this journey with me. And remember, the path to more is one of exploration, is one of growth and continuous learning. And I am here to support you every step of the way. Thank you for listening and talk to you next week.